Hello, my name is Porscha Sterling. Welcome to my channel. This is where we speak about all things related to books and romance. Today, I'll just say this has been a crazy week. It is not even over, but yesterday I watched the wedding episode to Love is Blind, season 9, and I'm still like emotionally just all over the place mainly because I don't know what's going on with that franchise, but nobody got married. Like, not one person. And at the end of the day, like, I wasn't even surprised. I can't even say I was surprised. I mean, you had to really be blind to not see the no coming from KB to Edmund, but I think what got me is I was not expecting to be so sad over Edmund's reaction. Like, he was so, while he was saying his vows to her, I knew then she was gonna say no. I think everybody knew she was gonna say no. If she didn't say no, we'd be like, girl, because they obviously were not a match. He was bringing out the worst parts of her, and it just would not have been a good situation. But I think just seeing his reaction, I was just not prepared to be so emotionally, like, just torn myself. I just felt so sad for Edmund. But I mean, the world knows his name now, so I'm sure somebody that's a match will be popping up in his DMs like, hey, I like to kiss the floor too. Let's do it together. I don't know. But anyways, so quite a week. But there's so much I could say about that show because I really feel like love can be blind, but it's going to take more than 4 weeks to get through the seeing part. Like, if it can be blind if you come out of the pods and you see the person and you're like, oh, I'm so attracted to this person. Yes, it can work. But if you're not attracted to the person, you have to build like a real friendship, and it's going to take more than 4 weeks. So I feel like they set those people up for failure in a lot of cases. And then it's almost like damned if you do, damned if you don't, because if you pull out of the experience prior to getting to the altar, people feel like you cheated the other person out of the experience. But then if you say no at the altar, it's just bad. So I really don't know what to say about that show. I just think at this point, Netflix needs to either pull it or redo how they do it, or go up in age to older people, because the other seasons, or not other seasons, but the other what am I trying to say? Franchises of Love is Blind in other countries, they have older people that are on the show, and so it's a little bit different because by then you kind of should know yourself and know a little bit more about what you want and what you need and what is superficial and what is a real actual need for a lifetime commitment. So who knows, but it's just all over the place. But anyways, that is not why I'm on here today. I'm actually on here today to let you all know, if you haven't heard this already, Sons of God, the companion book that I put out, is now permanently free everywhere books are sold. I'm so happy about that. I was trying to get it so that it was free, period, like not just free if you had Kindle Unlimited. So now it is free. You can go get it at the link that's in the description below. And also, Fallen, Sons of God, which is the first book in this series, is available for pre-order, but before it is released, which it'll be out on the 31st, Halloween, before it's released, I want to do some live readings of the book. This is my first time doing this, so we'll see how it goes. But I want to do some live readings of a few chapters from the book, and then I'll give my commentary, like, about the scene and what inspired me to write the scene, or what I think about the scene. I'll talk about whatever comes up afterwards. And if you have any specific questions you want to ask me about the book while I'm reading it, or just in general about my writing process, leave it in the comments and I'll answer in a follow-up video, okay? So let's get started. All right, so I'm reading from the book Fallen, Sons of God by me, Porscha Sterling. And starting with, let's see, chapter 1. So I started out with telling you the location because we changed locations in this book quite a few times. So the location of the first chapter is on Earth, the realm of choice. Earth is where gods forget who they are, where spirit wears skin, where memory gets buried beneath mortgages, heartbreak, and hope. It is a world of duality, beauty and betrayal, love and illusion, a proving ground wrapped in tons of chaotic energy, the only place where divinity can be refined through suffering or lost to it completely. Every soul here is searching. Every pain is a portal. Every ending is a beginning in disguise. And some gods, they fall in love here. That's where the trouble starts. Chapter 1, Falling Apart Together. I heard the hardest part is this moment, right before we decide to jump, Kalen said, his voice calm like the water below. Once we do it, everything else goes fast. We'll die before we hit the bottom. Won't even feel the pain. His words wrapped around his wife like fog, soft and cool, but impossible to hold on to. Ariel's fingers tightened around his, gripping at his skin like she was reaching for the last threads of her sanity. She didn't speak, couldn't force herself to utter a word even if she wanted to. Her throat was thick with the taste of indecision and fear. They stood side by side on the ledge, shoes balanced over rusted steel, toes hanging over nothing. Below them, the river beckoned to them in a dark tongue only broken souls could understand. Cold air blew kisses at their backs in a way that felt both gentle and urgent, as if something supernatural was giving them permission to make the leap. Or maybe it was something cruel. There wasn't a single star in the sky, only a thick sheet of clouds swallowing a full moon. Even the night seemed unsure about watching this unfold. A single car crept by behind them with its headlights skimming the curve of the bridge before disappearing again. The entire time they stood there contemplating their fates, no one even noticed. The world kept turning with indifference to their fates. The city locals had a name for this place. It was something common, easy to remember, and yet still forgettable. But for those who knew the ancient history of the city, those who carried memories older than time itself, it was called Veil Bridge. And the reason behind that name was one they could never share. Still clutching onto Kaylin for dear life, Ariel flexed her free hand at her side as if trying to find the connection to her body again. But all she found was an empty, numb feeling, one that had haunted her for far too long. A chill was already creeping its way into her bones, but it wasn't the cold that unsettled her. It was the ache in her gut, the ache that came when it's time to say goodbye, and not just to someone you love, but to everything that ever made you feel real. He turned toward her. You okay? No, her voice cracked like the sky would if it were made of glass. But I don't want to do this scared. I know. He lifted her hand, kissed it, and then pressed it against his chest. She could feel his heart. It wasn't racing the way hers was. His was steady and quiet, more ready for what was to come. I thought I'd feel more afraid about this, Kaylin said, as if reading her thoughts. But it just feels final, like a door I've already closed in my mind. Now it's just time to do it. Ariel nodded, but her eyes remained locked on the black water below. What if this isn't the only way? What if we waited just a little longer? Maybe we're not thinking this through. He paused to study her face for a moment, like it was his only connection to this world. She held a gentle softness inside her eyes, buried deep beneath her exhaustion. He could see traces of the woman he'd loved long before this life began to destroy them. You're tired, he said gently. You've been tired for a long time, and I haven't been strong enough to help you through everything the way that I thought I could. We aren't the people we were when we first came here. This life, it's changed us. We can't stay here. There's no other way. Her lip trembled. She hated that it did. The subtle vulnerability only validated his suggestion that she was weak. I thought we were supposed to be stronger than this. We are, he said, pulling her body into his. But everything has a limit. I guess we found ours. She swallowed down the bitter taste of iron on her tongue. I just thought, she started, but he shook his head gently. The warmth in his eyes stopped her words. Don't think, just feel me. He leaned his forehead to hers. Just focus on me. I've got you. Everything will be fine. A gust of wind hugged them like a final embrace from this world. Ariel allowed the scent of metal, the river, and autumn leaves to fill her lungs before letting out a heavy exhale. Her shoulders dropped, and she took Kaylin's advice, staring deeply into his brown eyes. She no longer saw the man who had suffered beside her for years, not even the man who had been the cause of it for so long. Instead, she saw the soul that had once lit her up from the inside. I love you, she whispered. I know. That's the one thing I've always known. Relaxing, she returned his smile and allowed herself to believe in peace. She only needed to for a moment. Kaylin pulled her forward, and she collapsed into his chest, enjoying the safety of his arms. As she laid her head against him, ignoring the way her entire body trembled, and they let go, falling together into the unknown. So this introduction to this book, the idea of it came to me after a tragedy that happened not too far from where I live. I had saw it online, actually. There's like a bridge. It's not really a bridge, but if you live in Atlanta, it's called Spaghetti Junction. There's all these interstates that come together at this point, and someone had jumped off, and it was a tragic ending to that. When that happened, I actually had to go somewhere that day, and I drove by that area, and it just made me think of how, first of all, how devastating that is to get to that point, how stressful and hopeless you have to feel in life to get to the point to make that kind of decision. And also, I started thinking about the people left behind when tragic things happen, when you lose a loved one, no matter how you lose them. And I was working on this book at the time. I didn't have an intro, like I didn't have how I wanted it to begin yet. But I started thinking about how to give a sense of peace in a way to people by showing that death isn't the end, and by doing it in a strange way, obviously, because of the fact that you have this husband and wife that are jumping off of a bridge to their death, but illustrating that level of desperation during a time where I feel like a lot of people are going through a lot of stressful things, and then showing the flip side of it, like what happens for these characters on the other side. And I think a lot of that had to do with the grief that is felt when we lose loved ones, and not wanting to come to terms with the fact that once people leave this world, that it's the end. I wanted to kind of explore that definitely, as the premise of this book. This whole book is about the fact that, in this book at least, there's more to reality than what we can see here in front of us. So that's how I came up with this beginning to this book. I knew already that I was going to have the situation where these divine couples were gods in human form that kept the balance here on earth. If you don't know what I'm talking about, I spoke about it in another video, and it's also part of the Sons of God companion book. But I knew that that was going to happen. I knew one of the couples had to either fail at their mission or just opt out. And so this scene came to me as a result of something really tragic that happened that kind of made me think a little deeply about that situation, and had a lot to do with the state of the world today and people feeling hopeless overall because of a lot of things. So that was the beginning. Hey guys, so I recorded reading both chapter 1 and chapter 2 at the same time, and the video is extremely long, so I'm gonna cut it right here and post the next chapter shortly. If you want to make sure that you don't miss it, please make sure that you subscribe to my channel, and please like this video so I know that you guys like content like this from me. And stay tuned, I have chapter 2 coming. Chapter 2 coming. I had to think about it because initially that first part I made like a prologue or something, but I switched it. So yeah, I have chapter 2 coming soon, so be on the lookout for that. And until next time, stay sweet, stay prayed up, and stay reading, I guess. I need a better like closing line, but yeah. Bye.